feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast, and we are brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Monday morning. It's March 2nd, and coming up on today's show, I will be joined by Wolves beat writer Jace Frederick from the St. Paul Pioneer Press to discuss the Wolves' win over Denver on Sunday afternoon and to get a little bit more into the Kyle Anderson acquisition. Spoiler, Jace also thinks Kyle is going to have a prominent role for this Wolves team. So we kind of walk through some scenarios with that as well. And obviously, in addition to talking about the win against Denver, what went well there. I have some clips from the locker room. I'm still in Denver, was at that game last night. So yeah, we'll dig into the Denver game. We'll talk about Kyle a little bit. We talk a little bit about the idea of, what's how fast is this season's Wolves team's fastball? What is the highest levels it can get to? I thought it was a good conversation with Jace, acknowledging the big win against Denver, but also talking about, a couple more levels maybe that this team can get to. Before I bring Jace in, I did want to let you know that I will be doing a live show at Treasure Island Resort and Casino on March 15th. It is a noon game on Sunday, March 15th against the Oklahoma City Thunder. So the idea is it's a watch party from 12 to 2:30, right? The game will be on the projection screens, all that sort of stuff. I'll be there, and Chris Hine will be there with me, Wolves beat writer from the Star Tribune. Chris and I will then, after the game, jump on stage, do an immediate reaction live show from maybe we'll call it like 2:45 to 3:45. We'll get going right after the game happens. We'll talk about whatever happens in the game. Maybe we'll have some other stuff prepared to discuss, but we like taking listener questions at these sort of things. If you guys come out to Treasure Island, you deserve to be able to ask questions and get your voice on the pod. We'll obviously record it and be able to listen to it after the fact for those of you who can't make the event. But I just think, for the game yesterday, that would have been a pretty fun one to be amongst other Wolves fans as the Wolves beat the Nuggets on a Sunday afternoon. And the sort of idea here we've had working for a while is to do it for this Thunder game. So Sunday, March 15th, the game starts at noon. I get there about 11. They're going to have a Bloody Mary bar, all sorts of stuff going on there. It's a watch party hosted by the Timberwolves. And then after the fact, we'll do that live show. March 15th, Treasure Island Resort and Casino. Should be like the last, like the Denver game yesterday, but against the Thunder. So we'd love to see you there. Yeah. Well, I'll keep giving you more details throughout these next coming weeks. But yeah, plan on Treasure Island on March 15th at noon for the game. Hope to see you there. All right, Hour of Hoops Talk with Jace Frederick coming up next. Let's go.
Hey, yeah.
All right, we are now joined by Wolves beat writer Jace Frederick. And Jace, I was sitting here trying to figure out what is the first thing to talk about from that game against the Nuggets last night or yesterday. And, normally I'd be like, okay, Ant had 40. Let's start with Ant, or Julius has like a triple double, or the defense is good, or whatever. Is it boring to say the biggest thing from that game in what was a really big game, a really important game for the Wolves, was just the bench and what the Wolves bench was able to do, Nas, Bones, and Io, but also what they were able to do against the non-Jokic minutes? That felt like the biggest story to me, but am I just digging too far into the weeds?
No, that was it. Jokic obviously was a +4 in that game, but that start of the second quarter, without it, like the rest of the game was played even, like legitimately. Those first 2 minutes of the second quarter, they won by 9 and they won the game by 9. And if you look at all other parts of the game, it was like the Wolves would make a mini run and get it to 14. Denver would get it back down to 7 or whatever. Like it was just little jabs back and forth. Like the big blow was the second quarter, and the bench started the whole thing. And it was, getting stops, forcing turnovers, whatever, going the other way, getting the kind of the motion rolling in transition. And then the starters, Julius Ant re-entered and kind of kept riding that wave from there. So the second quarter obviously is what won them the game, and because they were like stuck in the mud for the whole first quarter on both ends of the court. And it was those guys taking advantage of, pretty weak Denver bench given their injury situation right now. And Bones Highland obviously having a great shooting performance, and that got him going. That got him going. Like otherwise, I don't know if that game goes that way, but it was very clear. The other 3 quarters, it was like, Denver wins the first, the third, and the fourth are both kind of just like negligible either way. Like they won the game in the second quarter, and we all saw when it shifted, and it was with those bench minutes, which Minnesota needs. Like they need that. Mm-hmm. That's been a major part of their identity in the past couple of years, and it needs to be it now too. So it was encouraging to see a game where it was like the X factor.
I asked Finch about it, also through the lens of it being the non-Jokic minutes. Here's what Finch said. That group that you had out at the beginning of the second quarter and the fourth quarter. I mean, no Jokic out there in those times, but that seemed to be, they seem to give you a lot.
Yeah, you know, it's you got to win the non-Jokic minutes. We've been inconsistent over the last several years with that. You know, those guys were really good. Man, Bones was spectacular today. He played with great pace and got downhill and forced things to happen. Loved his defense too. Really competed. I thought Io stepped up just when we needed somebody to kind of slow down Murray just enough in the second half. Yeah, and then Nas found his groove offensively. So a lot of good things that people did there. It was a fun unit to watch.
So at the beginning of the second quarter, if I'm remembering correctly, Jace, it was the Wolves went on a 9-0 run right away to start the top of the second quarter, and that's when Jokic just checks off the floor, and it was 2 minutes in, Adelman calls a timeout.
Yeah, because they were going no Jokic, no Murray, which is something they like to do this year. They just can't do it with their current availability. And even he was like, I even listened to his post game because I was like, do they usually do that? Yeah, they usually do that. And he's like, I can't do that right now. So they put Murray back in the game at that point.
Well, I didn't realize how bad the non-Jokic minutes were in the Thunder when they played the Thunder the other night, because I just kind of I wasn't really watching that game, and they lost those minutes to the Thunder by 21. I mean, it's an absolute Achilles heel if there ever was one to any team ever. I was sitting there during the game last night, and so I'm like logging the non-Jokic minutes. I'm like, okay, 6 minutes on, +7. You know, there we go. He's out. I mean, it's a crazy phenomenon with them, and they need to have Murray out there, ideally Gordon or Watson out there as well with Murray. I think when Jokic is out there, obviously no Gordon or Watson in that game. But in the fourth quarter, they did have Murray out on the floor when Jokic rest, and then the Wolves still blitz him for the first minute of the fourth quarter, and Adelman has to take a timeout. So it's more of a Denver issue as it always has been, right, with the non-Jokic minutes. But as Finch said in his answer there, which I do remember from tracking it over the million times they've played the Nuggets over the past few years, they don't normally win or they don't normally dominate them. Like there's been a lot of, I should put a list together of those. There's been a lot of like, okay, you won the non-Jokic minutes by like 2 in this game. And what can really break Denver is if you do what they did, last night, and you're able to make a 11, 12 point lead in 5 or 6 minutes there. Makes a world of difference.
I mean, I think a big part of it is if you think about last year and whatnot, it's if like, okay, Mike's out there and Rudy, and that's who's starting like the second quarter or whatever. Like it's inherently a slower paced game. Yeah. So if Denver would love to play a few possessions, like, hey, how few possessions can we play in these 4 minutes? That'd be great. Right. Where like the guys that Minnesota's playing in a second unit now, like they really do like to play with pace. They like to get up and down. And so that creates more of like, this unit for Denver isn't very good. It's the best way to exploit it is to get up and down. And how many possessions can we get? How many, possessions can we make them play where they're missing and we're turning the ball over and it's turning into opportunities the other way. And that is where it turns into like a 9-0 quick, where otherwise if you're going slower, it's like, we won that one 8-2, or it was like, it was dominant, but there's only so much margin created from it. I think having guys who like to get up and down in that second unit, as all of them do, is really good when you face an inferior unit like Denver's bench unit. So I think that helped exploit that quite a bit of like, get it going your way. And all of a sudden everything really starts rolling downhill.
You said all the guys like to play fast, and people say, well, Rudy was out there in those minutes. Rudy wants to play fast then too. Like he gets it. He wants to play defense.
He runs the court too. Yeah. Like he really does. I've noticed that a lot this year.
And I'll go with you. Like you could go score it, but like he's not plotting, on his way in transition either. I mean, it was in both of the non-Jokic stints. It was the 3 bench guys, Reed, Io, and Bones, and then Rudy was also out there with them in both the first half and the second half. And then it was Jaden in the first half as the 5th guy out there. Dante is the 5th guy out there in the second half. But I like Rudy with that bench group. Rudy and those 3 guys. Utah had a ton of success with that. I remember back in the day when they were there, they would always just dominate those minutes because Rudy would always be out on the floor in the start of the second quarter and the fourth quarter when teams it's not always the non-Jokic thing, but that's the worst minute. That's the worst personnel you will ever face in a game is at the start of the second quarter and the start of the fourth quarter, because that's when the star player's sitting. I mean, same's true for the Wolves. That's when Ant sits, you know. I like the idea, and I think with the depth that this Wolves team now is appearing to have, you know, that's just another one of those little things on the margin that aren't really even that little. I think they did the same thing against the Clippers the other night too. Was those same bench guys with Rudy out there? I don't know. I want to keep an eye on this. Like this might be a thing where they can consistently profit from night to night.
It's especially how you win regular season games, right? Like we see the rotations change a lot. Yeah, exactly. Right. And then now all of a sudden, maybe especially when they need it, close games or whatever, teams are just going to roll with their star player the whole second half or sit for 1 minute or something. So these aren't as prevalent, but in the regular season, this is how you win games. Like you win these 5-minute segments by a lot, you turn the tide, you extend your lead, whatever. And so if Minnesota can get more consistency there, that's going to help them win a lot of games down the stretch because, hey, a lot of teams are banged up. A lot of teams have mailed it in. And you don't always still see that. Like teams can usually still field a decent 5-man lineup, even if they're missing 3 guys or whatever. But then it's the second unit that stinks. And you tell it's oh, these aren't NBA players. And Denver's not quite to that, but you can see it's not like they try out lineups. It's well, there's no scoring option out there, and not very many good defenders either. Okay, and so then that's when if your guys can play well and have an identity and play their brand, that's where you can go on these runs that either, like I said, either provide cushion or make up deficits like it did in the second quarter and change the game and flip it on its head. And like I said, we saw that with the bench in the past couple of years. And if they can kind of start establishing that now, that'll be a huge advantage for them as they kind of chase towards this 3 seed here.
Ant wasn't out there in those non-Jokic minutes. He's resting at that time as well. But I think it wasn't just the bench that was helpful. You know, the 3 bench guys combined for 38 points, were super efficient, won those minutes by a lot, but they also got a lot from Dante in this game, Jaden. And
Jaden was great. Yeah.
And then, and
Dante was great too.
The starting lineup, they had to play through the lesser pieces like Dante and Jaden of the starting group as well and get scoring from them because of the way that, Denver knows what they're going to do against Edwards. They don't have anybody who can guard him individually, and they just slowly get to the point over the course of the game where they just start dialing it up of loading up more and more, double bringing the double team from Jokic slowly, and then by the end of the game, Ant crosses half court. Here comes Jokic to literally double him 40 feet from the basket. Rudy's wide open on the backside there. We've talked about this a million times over the course of Ant's career and frustration he's had with facing that type of coverage. It was the most cool I thought Ant was with having that, seeing that coverage and just kind of understanding I'm so far away from the basket. You have 2 players on me. If I pass it here, we're going to score 80% of the time. And that is a development in Ant, even from a year ago. I asked him about that in the locker room after the game too.
2 on you on the ball in the second half. They're loading up in that way. What is that like for you? Kind of the mental discipline or whatever to play against that.
A couple. It might have been last year, year before last, where I was man, they double teaming me. I don't like it, but at this point, it's a sign of respect because they weren't just double teaming; they was hitting me from half court. I'm dribbling the ball up, we finna run a play, and they just bring it to. So I'm not mad at all because at the end of the day, my 4 is better than they 3. We're playing 4 on 3. So I hit Rudy and he makes a play, and I feel like we're gonna win if they keep making a play like that.
And you're still getting yours.
Yeah, and I still had what I needed to get. I got enough to win the game, so I'm not mad at all.
That end piece, right? My 4 is better than your 3. I'm still going to be able to get to 20, which is what we would always say too. It's just because they're putting 2 on you doesn't mean you're never going to get it back. Doesn't mean you're never going to get a chance to shoot it, right? It's just it's not going to be one of those possessions where you walk it up and you tween, isolate. It's just going to be, you're going to score as Ant after getting off of it and getting it back to you. And that was an internal battle with Ant earlier in his career that, he's at minimum doing the minimum against that. And that's really all you have to do to profit because it is 4 on 3 on the backside.
Yeah. And I think I was impressed with that. I did think just being transparent, I think it helps that they're up like 8-10 in those situations. I don't think if it's a tie game or a 2-point game that he's doing that same thing. I think he's like,
look
I got
at the Clippers game.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, so it's a cool development, but I think like time and score matters a lot in that spot because I think he's like, it's my time if it's a tie game or they're down or they're winning. Like, so I don't think it's necessarily predictive of like clutch time if against Denver in a playoff series or something, but it's just good to get reps and see it work. Like Rudy was very slow, methodical, sure of himself, usually making the right pass. So like, it's just always good to be like, you did it and it worked, like, see, like you can trust Rudy with it. Like he made some nice passes, even like the one turnover. It wasn't like a terrible Rudy play. It gets down to Julius and Julius just gets kind of boxed in and turns it over. But in general, they got a lot out of it. So I think that the more Minnesota can stack those at any point in time, it's a really good thing for them. And yeah, like I would expect Denver to, when it counts in the playoffs, to be that high up because it doesn't help Jokic to be in the middle because that's when he's in a spot where he's not protecting the rim at all, not by the glass, and Ant's just going to drive by him if he's even at like the free throw line. We saw that quite a bit. It has to be so far out that Ant's like, well, this is basically a trap and to get off of it. So I think he's going to see that exact look if they face Denver in the playoffs a ton. So it is good just to get those reps now.
That I'm glad you brought up the rim protection thing. That is like, if we're listing up when we do a playoff preview, if we do that, you've always been on this of just Denver has no rim protection. And especially when Aaron Gordon's not out there.
Right.
And it's just a massive win for the Wolves for the Ant reasons there. And, because Ant, if he isn't getting doubled, he can go to the basket and score on Jokic pretty much whenever he wants. Like, there's just not going to be the contest at the rim there. But it's not just Ant. Like, Jaden is going to the basket there, and he's got Jamal Murray on his hip, and he doesn't care because it's Jokic there. It's Jokic there is now the guy he has to finish around, and that's different than if it's Donovan Clingan, or Porzingis or something like that. It's a big weakness that Denver has, not just against Minnesota, but I think when you think about what Minnesota has in terms of rim finishers, like they have an Ant and Jaden and Julius and Nas, like that's a lot of guys that probably to have them have a quote unquote lesser night, you need to present resistance at the rim. And it's just resistance that the Denver team last night couldn't. But I am thinking about, okay, so what happens when if Denver's fully healthy and they bring two on the ball, Jokic comes up, who's rotating under in the backside at the rim if they're fully healthy? That's Aaron Gordon or Peyton Watson.
Both are much, much better than what they had. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's an advantage for the Wolves. It will be a different test, which is just maybe a small metaphor for this whole matchup right now. It's going to be different if they face a full strength Denver team, but that means that they should have taken care of business yesterday as they did. I recognized Denver was on 100%, but I thought the Wolves beat them as such. I think they could have beat them by more. We were texting about that a little bit, but I don't know. I thought they took care of business and should be still pre-prepared for if they play them in the playoffs. It's going to be a different offensive assignment because there's going to be better defensive personnel out there for Denver, likely. I mean, we'll see. Like, I'm not super sold that Peyton Watson and Aaron Gordon, who have hamstring injuries, are going to be healthy for the entirety of the playoffs or even the entirety of a playoff series against the Wolves or anybody. But I think what I learned last night is if Denver isn't full strength, I think this Wolves team can punish them with offense and can then match sort of Jokic's individual offensive dominance that he has. That group last night for Denver didn't have anything for the Wolves.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking it up because I still just follow a lot of Denver guys just from like past series and whatnot, and those guys, they're nice guys over there. You follow them; they know a lot about the NBA in general. But they're like seeing, Denver's really struggling in the clutch time this year, and looking it up, and their clutch time offense isn't as good as it usually is, but their clutch time defensive rating is like 120. And so that's terrible. And that means that when you're supposed to be like buckling down late in the game, they're giving up, 1.2 points every time down the court. And you see why. It's because they don't have any personnel. Like Jokic and Murray are always going to be two guys where it's like, okay, yeah, we'll try to get them in action, try to attack. And then they don't have rim protectors. And then they don't have, Aaron Gordon and Peyton Watson are two of their better defenders, and Aaron Gordon's missed a lot of time, and he's their best defender. He's only played 23 games this year, and it's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Of like, they don't have the defensive personnel to dictate anything that you're doing or really respond to anything you're doing, and you saw that last night. Like, the Wolves were just kind of able to pick, like even Rudy in wide open space, and then there aren't good defenders like cat and mousing him into any mistakes or anything like that. It was like, take your time and do what you want to do, and the Denver players are like, oh, hopefully they screw up here. That's just it. And that's where Denver is right now. And I honestly, like, if Denver is totally healthy and somebody want to be like, I think that team's going to win the title, I don't know if I'd argue with them, but I agree with you that this Aaron Gordon, the hamstring thing, like that ended their year last year. And it's been multiple here this year. And like, to think that it's not going to happen again doesn't feel like a very good bet. And without him, they're just not very good. Like, this team's 4-8 in their last 12 games. They're 20-18 total this year without Aaron Gordon, 17-6 with him. They're really great when he's on the court. They're not great when he's not. They need at least Peyton Watson back to be even some kind of threat, because they're not deep enough.
I think they need both, man.
I think they need both to win the title.
Yeah.
Yes. I think they need at least Peyton Watson to be like a threat to win a round in the playoffs. And they need both to contend for a title, and when they don't have it, it's just not great. That's kind of where they're at, and that makes sense. Like, hey, we watched the Wolves play one game without Rudy and Nas, and they sucked. like it matters a lot to miss two of your top 6 players, and they're so pivotal for rounding out the lineups with Murray and Jokic out there and surviving the minutes where they're not. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Like, they're just not very good with those guys out, and I agree with you that I don't know if they're gonna be able to count on that. They're hopeful, obviously. Like, those guys will return. Will they stay on the court? Like, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, Gordon is kind of like their Gobert in that he just provides a floor.
Yeah.
Right. And
he's great. I mean, like, when we watch him in his prime, like at the beginning of the season, like, he is a do everything guy, like make all the winning plays. Oh, and he can score 50 points. Like, all of the shooting is so improved over the last couple of years. Like, I really think that's like a top 25 player when healthy, and they don't have him. And I don't know if they're going to have him. And they don't have enough depth wise. Like, they tried to piece together a team where they had enough depth wise if healthy this year. They don't have it if they're not healthy.
Let's grab a break here and talk a little bit about how the Wolves guarded Jokic, which is another, I think, big conversation point when we think about this through a playoff lens. We'll take a break and be back with Jace here in a second. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks, and let's put a daily fantasy lineup together for tonight's set of NBA games. No Wolves game tonight, so I'll be home on the couch watching the NBA, and I'm going to put together a Prize Picks lineup. So I'm looking at it. First of all, the first thing that pops, Kawhi Leonard has a discounted square on there. His point total is set for the game at 27.5, but they do these discounts occasionally, and they bumped it down to 19.5. So I'm going to take more than 19.5 points for Kawhi Leonard. I think he should score 20 or more if he's playing. Let's throw Jokic in there to have more than 10.5 rebounds against Utah. Did not realize Denver's on a back-to-back, but I think Jokic will be able to get 11 or more rebounds against the Jazz. And then Giannis is coming back. I'm going to probably watch that Bucks-Celtics game, and if Giannis is back, I think that's going to take the ball out of the point guard's hands some. Let's say Ryan Rollins scores less than 16.5 points in that one. If you're going to be watching the games, throw $5 on the lineup. Doesn't need to be anything crazy. Just gives you a little added rooting interest that I think is fun. And if it's fun for you, we'd love it if you played. You know the deal. There's always something going on at Prize Picks, and now a lot more with the ability to do futures and point spreads and all that sort of stuff on the teams tab. If you don't yet have a Prize Picks account, all you have to do is put in the promo code Dane. When you sign up, you'll receive $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com, the Prize Picks app, using promo code Dane. All right, Jace, let's talk about how the Wolves defended Jokic. It was, I mean, just on his face, it was I think the most Rudy has primarily been the primary defender of Jokic. That was the plan in this matchup. You can go back to the Christmas Day game, the last time they played Denver, and they started with Julius on Jokic, and they kind of had Rudy doing the lurking thing like they used to do back in the day with Cat on Jokic, Rudy lurking. In that Christmas Day game, I went back and watched it before this. In the second half, they switched that, and they just went Rudy with the primary. And I think that was the Wolves recognizing that actually Denver's personnel is different than that series 2 years ago. Denver didn't have a great starting lineup or anything out there yesterday. They're missing those important pieces. But it was Strother, Cam Johnson, Jamal Murray, and who else am I missing there?
Christian Brown.
And Christian Brown, like 4 guys who can shoot that you're not gonna put Rudy on and ignore,
Right.
So I think what we've learned over the course of this season and in this matchup is the Wolves don't really have that same card that they could play 2 years ago of just having Rudy lurk against Denver's main personnel. So the pivot is and was for this game yesterday. When Rudy's out there, Rudy's guarding Jokic. And that's different. We remember game 5 when Jokic had like 50 on Rudy in that playoff series. But it's a good representation, I think, of what the Wolves' plan is against Jokic, which is just, we're going to make this hard. We're just going to try to make this hard on you. You're probably going to score at will on whoever, whether it's, Gobert or Randall or whatever the deal is, but we're going to make it as tough as possible. And the best way to make it tough as possible, given our personnel and Denver's personnel, is to have Rudy be the primary. What did you think of that? And do you think that will be is that the best thing for this Wolves team to do in a playoff series against Denver?
With this current roster, I don't think it is, frankly. I think I would definitely sign up to make others beat you if it's not like Aaron Gordon, who's developed into a really good 3-point shooter out there. Even Peyton Watson's really improving on that end. Like, I think that current personnel yesterday was like, hey, maybe get it out of Jokic's hands. Even like get the balls moving. I don't trust a lot of these guys. Like, I watched Cam Johnson. I know Cam Johnson apparently has an ankle thing, left the game, was horrible defensively. And so when David Adelman was like, oh, he can't move laterally, I was like, that's what it looked like. But he just couldn't hit a shot. There's a lot of these guys where it's like, it's only Murray and Jokic are the only threats out there right now. Like, I would actually, if it's this personnel, probably try to do more of like the lurking, make somebody else beat you. Because we've seen too many times where they're like, well, let's just let Jokic get his. And those are the games where it's like, well, they won, but it took overtime.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a bad bet given their current personnel. I think if Denver is healthy, then it's different. Then you do play it maybe the way like they did. But yeah, otherwise, I think you just go, well, our roster is better than theirs. And I don't trust a lot of these guys in big moments to do things consistently. So I don't know if I loved it for yesterday, but I totally understand it if Denver's at full strength to go that route.
Mm-hmm. I think in a playoff series, I don't think they'll just do the same thing for 48 minutes. Like the Wolves had one plan and they just did the one plan, which was, if it's Rudy's out there guarding them. If it's Reed and Randall, hope Julius or Nas can fight and just get into him and try to push him away. And in those 6 minutes, hope Jokic doesn't score 15, but he's probably going to score 10. What I've been thinking about is like, what are the other options that the Wolves could do? And if you ask people in Denver, like the Jokic defense now, the best one is like what the Thunder do to him, and they try to front him.
Mm-hmm.
They have Caruso front, and then they kind of have a guy lurking on the backside behind him. I had Matt Moore on last week, and he brought up the idea, because he's following Denver closely. He's like, this is the best thing to do against Denver, is to, if you can front Jokic. And he brought up the idea of Io kind of doing the thing like Caruso. And you're squinted right there, and I did the same thing when he said it. I think it's actually an interesting representation of like, okay, this is recognizes a good mechanism against Denver, but you and I both go, I don't think the Wolves will do that.
I don't think they're the people to do it.
Yeah.
Like, there's only so many Alex Caruso's like so scrappy, like that type.
That's why I said
player.
to Matt, I was like, I think you're giving the Wolves too much credit in their ability to execute.
Yeah. Like, I know on a surface it's like, good defender. It's like, but it's different being like a true harassing player. And Alex Caruso does that, and I don't think the Wolves really have any of those like true harassers. Just like
kind of Kyle Anderson.
That's maybe their best bet, but do you think Kyle Anderson's like a fronting, harassing player? Like, honestly, like
so.
when I watched,
you could.
When I watch back, well, Kyle Anderson is a great option to throw something at Jokic.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, like they've had to go to that a few times. Like there was a time where they were down multiple guys on like second half of a back-to-back, and Kyle did a good job. And then obviously game 2 of the West semis 2 years ago, Kyle was the primary defender and had Jokic kind of in hell, frankly. Like that was Jokic's worst game, maybe of the whole series, and Kyle was the main one. And it was because like it was from behind.
Yeah.
because I watched it back even last week. But a lot of like poking, like just trying to poke the ball out, like just
those
like,
long
okay,
Kyle.
yeah,
around-
like
yeah,
I know
reach
you're
around
trying to
things,
back
yeah.
me down here. I'm not just going to like sit there and try to get my arms ready and hold my ground because that's not going to work. But as you're backing me down, I know where the dribble's going, so I'm going to try to disrupt that way and make you think twice that way and get a steal and get you uncomfortable. So I think Kyle will be a legitimate option and maybe would be their second best option behind Rudy, if assuming he does come in and contribute and they can rely on him. Like I like Kyle a lot more than Julius or Nas, even as Julius like is somebody who likes to play like physically. It doesn't really work against Jokic. I actually really like Kyle in that spot.
I think so too. Just like I think that's the spot for Kyle. And oh, sorry, what I was going to say is, I think the Wolves are screwed if Rudy gets in foul trouble in a game against Denver. As they kind of did get screwed on Christmas Day when Rudy got in foul trouble against Denver, because I mean, it is extremely unlikely that the Reed Randall front court will be able to have a good stretch against Jokic. If you watch his buckets back from yesterday when Rudy wasn't out on the floor, I mean, it's literally just the like big kid rolling up the smaller kid in the post and like, all right, dribble, hook. Like it's just easy.
It's like I appreciate it. I know what everybody's pointing to. I agree with it, but like there's with less than 3 minutes left, clip circulating of the Wolves, like Jaden pressures Murray up the court and Rudy gets out on Brown like to close out on a kick out. Yeah, it was all nice. But it ends with Jokic on Randall, and like Randall does a good job contesting too. But Jokic gets exactly where he wants to go, and the ball has to rattle 3 times to not go in. So so it's like there's only so much resistance wise you can do, and a big part of it, like the lurker with Gobert out there, is great because Gobert can block the shot, and it's just like everything defensively. It's like, okay, Jokic is going to get to where he wants to go. Can he go slow enough to where a shot blocker can then come in and actually impede? Well, even if Randall and Reed hold up, there's no shot blocker. So eventually when he gets to his spot, he can shoot with full comfort, knowing he doesn't have to alter anything that he's trying to do because there's nobody who's going to swat it away. So that's true.
Maybe not. I kind of like Nas.
We don't see a lot, though.
Lurk. I know.
agree with
I'm
you.
just saying he's more of a shot blocker than Julius is, and I think
Yeah.
that's why they put Julius as the primary in that spot, because Julius is stronger. That makes sense too, and Nas would be a better rim protector if Nas can be in the lane to lurk. But if Jokic is posting up Randall and Nas is guarding Cam Johnson in the corner, like Nas cannot just come all the way over to the rim to be a second. Like a rim protector in that position. But I do think Nas has some skill there, which makes me intrigued by the Nas Kyle option of a front court.
That's where
Rudy's in foul trouble.
That's where I remember, like when they traded for Rudy, I was like, Nas had the same shot block rate last year as Rudy did. It's like, and it's literally not like anything of
those are
obviously not even in the same galaxy of defenders. But Nas has always been a little bit more of like an off-ball shot blocker, and almost part of the problem is that he goes for ones where it's like, you're not in position at all. This is just gonna be a foul. But he has the instincts to want to do it, and the ability to jump up and do it. But what I like about Kyle is like, while Caruso does all those Nat-like things from the front, Kyle is, like it's the best way. Like you're not gonna hold up, so just try to like reach, poke, prod, like maybe hit a wrist and the ball just goes away and it's not called a foul. Like Kyle will do those things just from like the position as he's getting back down, which is so much more effective than somebody who can't physically hold up, trying to physically hold up. And it's just a matter of how many dribbles do we have to wait until he's at the rim? That to me makes no sense, but it's just a lot of guys' instincts are, and Kyle is more thinking the game of like, I'm not holding up to this. So what else can I do to bother him?
Yeah, I meant to play I asked Finch about this afterwards, but like Finch's standard here is not doing a good, like not shutting him down or even like, it's just being annoying. Nag on Jokic is the goal here. I asked Finch about it after the game.
Assess the way that you guys collectively guarded Jokic.
I mean, who knows? I mean, he's 15 for 26. He has 35 points. He's such a tough cover, incredible player. Try to mix it up on him. I'm not sure any defense looks that much different than the rest. But our guys battled him, and that's all we ask him to do.
That's where I would say, like, did what they did yesterday work? I would say no. Like they lost the Jokic minutes, and their roster is significantly better than Denver's right now, and they lost the minutes, and his efficiency and everything was good. So did it work? I would say no.
That's a real neither is the coach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'd say I agree. Like, did it work? No. So I think that is where like you try a Kyle or something if the situation comes up again, because what you have done is not effective. Like
Right.
you won in spite of it yesterday. That's kind of where I think Finch probably feels the same way.
Right. And just knows that that's like kind of part of this reality. I mean, Rudy, I'm not gonna play this clip, but like I asked Rudy about it too, and he's like, well, he can have 40 as long as the team doesn't score 100, or if he has 40 and the team doesn't in total score 100, that's a win for us. And I think the question from last night, depending on how you look at it, I know how the way we look at it is like, well, sure, they didn't score 100, but would have they scored 100 if they had Aaron Gordon and Peyton Watson in this game? I think probably. And then
They scored 108.
Yeah, or sorry, okay,
Yeah.
well over 100. I was kind of at the end of the game.
Yeah,
but yeah, it goes back to this lingering question: if we're gonna pour a little bit of water on what was a really good and important win for the Wolves, is just we still don't know, because we need to see what this group versus that group looks like with reinforcements. They've also beat the Wolves 3 out of 4 times this year. I do though, like honestly, that game did make me feel better about the matchup against Denver. When I came into it pretty like, I don't know, they kind of rolled them 3 times. And they're just sharper than them. And Murray's having a really good season too. I think it'll be an awesome series if it happens. But yeah, I can't shift my mind so much until I see it against a full health Denver team.
See, that's where you thought it probably was. Do you thought it wasn't going to go well yesterday? I definitely thought the Wolves were going to win that game.
So this is probably I watched the Christmas Day game when I was on the plane coming here. And
yeah, it's just a different team than Denver is right now. But yeah.
Yep. And so I'm saying, I'm like, hand up. That's what I was giving Denver too much credit for the roster that they were going to put out yesterday. And I should have been more thinking about the Denver team that I watched lose to Golden State last week, in that game where there was no Steph, no Draymond, whatever. Yeah. That's where this version of Denver is. This version of Denver, the Wolves are a lot better than Jokic scares me, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like I always, once I start putting myself to it, I'm like, well, okay, this side has Jokic, it just, in any sort of calculation in the matchup, I'm going to lean that way because of what I think Jokic is. But collectively, this Wolves group is a lot better than that Denver group from yesterday.
That's where, it's like seeing reactions on socials and stuff from everybody like, oh, like there it is. Like you say whatever you want about the Wolves, but like when it's time to step up, like they turn it on. And I really thought they were going to win yesterday going away. Like I really did. Like I thought this was like pretty well set up where Gordon's out, Watson's out. Denver loses an OT Friday night in OKC. Wolves had 2 days off and a practice. Wolves, Chris Finch said it. We treated this like a playoff game. Like I was like, okay, we're going to see like the Wolves fastball today. And in the past, that usually has meant like Denver blowouts, in previous seasons. That I looked it up. It was like, all right, last year they had wins of 29 and 20 points over Denver. And then 2 years ago, 21 in the regular season. And in the playoffs, they beat them once by 26 and once by 45. It's like they've done it a lot. And I was like, okay, the table's pretty set here for the Wolves, who haven't played very well of late, to like, okay, lock in. This is a playoff game. Here it is. And blow them off the floor. And after the second quarter, they got it to 8, and I was like, there it is. Like that's what I expect the rest of the way. I honestly was thinking like 6 minutes left, we're going to be seeing Jalen Clark, TJ, Berenger out there in like a 25-point game. And it just never got there. And that's fine. Like they won the game, certainly, and they controlled it throughout. But like, I did wonder, like, this isn't the Wolves fastball, is it? Like we've seen a like high heat where it's like the opponent in the batter's box just doesn't have anything for it.
Yeah.
And if that was like the multiple days prep, got to practice in, tight rotation, 8, like treating it like a playoff game, we know how important this game is in the standings, and that was the best they had against that team. Like that to me is like, that doesn't match the heat they were able to bring in the past couple of years. Like I think they threw like 103 2 years ago on their best day, and I think they threw 99 to 100 last year, and that looked more like 96. Where like it was like they controlled it, but they didn't like blow Denver off the court outside of like one quarter. And that to me was a little bit like, okay, what is this team's ceiling? What is their best game? Because that can't have been it. Like if they want to be a team
I don't
that
think it was.
contends for a title. Right. Okay. So when are we going to see it? Like, what's going to draw
Mhm.
it out, I guess, is my mind, because everything should have lined up to see it yesterday, and we didn't. So that I'm just kind of waiting on what is going to bring it out.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's pick into it a little bit. I mean, the one thing is like none of the starters had a massive game, right? And as we talked about before, the kind of counterbalance to that was the bench did have an awesome game. So maybe those things, kind of equal each other out. If the bench is going to score 38 between three guys and Ant's can only have 21, like that's going to be, you're going to be all right. I think the thing that was missing from a fastball is if Julius was able to have a good Julius game in that game alongside everything else happening. Does that feel like 103? Like playoff version of Julius. And I think that's just where we're at, where it's like the best version of this team, as frustrated as people have been with the lower level of play that Julius has had recently. I think your point highlights that he is heavily involved in the Wolves throwing their fastest pitch. And he's searching right now. Will that be different in the playoffs? Can that be different in a week? That would just be wishful thinking, to some extent. But I think I felt like that was the difference, along with maybe not the same level of defense. So they closed the game really well. I'm not sure this team has that same defensive gear, period. Their fastball now is more about offense than it is defense, as we talk about all the time, despite the fact that they say they hang their hat on defense. The best version of this Wolves team is overwhelming you with offense that you can't slow down. That getting out in transition and playing in that sort of way. That's the best version of this team, I think. Whereas 2 years ago, it was the team that suffocates you on defense. That was the imagery of that. I think it's just a representation of this team's different than that team 2 seasons ago. And that team 2 seasons ago knew how to get to their best stuff more often than this team does as of right now. 20 games left or whatever. Is it coming? I mean, I don't know. If it comes, they're a championship contender. If it doesn't, they're not. Obviously, you're not going to.
That's an
winning the
interesting point, though,
championship.
because I think a lot of people, when they watch that game yesterday, and like maybe it's not always like realizing the realities of Denver and who Denver is right now, but they go, oh yeah, this team can beat anybody. And you're kind of acknowledging there of like, no, not with that. And I think so too. And that's why I think it's an important point to bring up of like, that wasn't that level of that. And it can't be their best thing, where like, if they were treating it all like a playoff game and stuff, like why wouldn't that have been the stage that brought out your best level? So that's where it better not be their best level is my biggest point. And I think Randall is a big part of that. Like all the stars align for Denver with that personnel. Like Christian Braun has to guard Ant, and even that's not a great option. But they have to put in so many resources to Ant, to where that really should be like a blow up Julius game. I know Julius just is kind of in a funk right now, but it was a little alarming that there wasn't more. And he still had 9 boards, 7 assists. It's not like he didn't contribute, but he certainly didn't dominate parts of the game. And when neither one of them is really dominating parts of the game, and like I said, I think that's what kind of kept them from blowing the doors off the game and not really like outright winning other parts of the game outside of the second quarter. Is like, if they're going to win with offense, and I agree with you, especially against Denver, you win with offense. You have to find a way for, okay, if they're going to take away Ant, then this is where Julius has to exploit it. And it wasn't like he was bad, but he certainly wasn't dominant, and not as dominant as we've seen in this specific matchup in the past.
Yeah, I haven't rewatched any of the game, but I want to kind of go back and look at some. I'm picturing 2 plays where they put 2 on Ant, got off it. Julius is attacking a shifted defense, and there was that 1-and-1 on the left side he had in the fourth quarter there.
Yep, that was a big one. There's another one where he like threw the ball out of bounds, where I was like, I feel like you should have scored there. Yeah, I feel like that was it was a drive, and I think it was an opportunity to score. It was like, no, and then he tried to throw like a pass to, I think maybe Jaden or somebody in the corner, and it went off their hand because it was off target, went out of bounds. And it was like, that was where it's like, are you confident right now in everything that you're doing? Because I don't know if
it's out of rhythm. I mean, you're describing an out of rhythm play, and it's why there's just this dynamic with Julius where it's important to like kind of get the metronome and rhythm over the course of the game. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So when there is these situations where Julius has to be able to be one guy against a shifted defense, which the best version of Julius Randle does in his sleep,
Mm-hmm.
but the out of rhythm version of Julius Randle maybe like flails a little bit, tries to draw the foul, makes the weird pass. I think it's part of the reason why Finch plays through Randle as much as he does in just normal situations in the second quarter, is because the best version of them is Ant is soaking up so much of the defense that you get off of it, and it's an easy, attack off the catch for Nas or Julius or Jaden, whatever it might be. Yeah, I don't know. It's just it's getting to the point where I don't even know like when to expect the better Julius stuff. I used to feel like that was there, and it can be a matchup that's presenting a really seemingly profitable Randall thing that at the beginning of the season he was taking advantage of all the time.
We used to be able to mark it on the calendar. This is going to be a big Julius
why
thing.
not?
Really
so what? Yeah. Why? Is that just rhythm? I guess I don't know.
I mean, I would definitely give, if this was a one-off, I'd go, hey, back spasms was questionable coming in, might just not have been himself. But it's just more that it's been a continuation of like just a seemingly out of rhythm player, that it's a little bit more alarming. And maybe he wasn't at 100% yesterday, and maybe it hasn't been, we don't know. When somebody does want to play every single game and they make it a set goal in the season, it is like, are you playing where you shouldn't be? All this kind of stuff. Could you have used a day off somewhere in here? I don't know. But it's got to change, because like you remember, like when they beat Denver in that playoff series, it was because like when Denver really had to go all in on like, okay, we got to put everybody at Ant. Then it would be like Cat delivered in a lot of spots, sure. Like against shifted defenses, playing off the catch, all that kind of stuff. It's got Randall has to do that because they have to be almost unstoppable offensively, especially if Denver's able to get to full strength. It's got to, that's just, it does raise their ceiling in the playoffs everywhere, to where you see them like, oh, okay, now this team is really rolling. Now they're a really tough team to handle. Like Draymond Green said it, and it was after Draymond Green got cooked. And it didn't prove true the next series anyway, but he's like, oh yeah, like Randall number 2, like that's a championship number 2, what he did there. And it has to at least look like that in a lot of matchups I think take Minnesota as like this team can really like compete with the very best teams in the NBA. So that is one where people might get frustrated and stuff, but I understand trying to push through it on the Randall front, because that is their ceiling ultimately. And I think it has to be. And there's still like a fair amount of season to figure it out. But it's not trending in the right direction, I think, is maybe the bigger concern.
Today's show is brought to you by Quince, Quince, and Quince is a clothing line that puts out everyday clothes that last. They sent me a quarter zip jacket, and it was one of those items of clothing where you kind of pick it up and you feel the quality when you hold it. There's like a weight to it. It feels like it's made out of premium materials, and that's because it is. That's what Quince does best. Premium materials, thoughtful design, and everyday staples that feel easy to wear and easy to rely on, even as the weather shifts. Quince has the everyday essentials with quality that lasts. Organic cotton sweaters, polos for every occasion, lighter jackets that keep you warm in changing seasons. The list goes on. And Quince is a company that works directly with top factories, so they cut out the middleman, so you're not paying for that brand markup, just quality clothing. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/DaneMoore for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/DaneMoore. Free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/DaneMoore. Last thing, let's talk about Kyle Anderson a little bit more big picture. I did a couple minutes on it after the Clippers game, and I just kind of sat down and started thinking about it, and it didn't take me long to get to. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Kyle Anderson's going to be the 8th man in like 2 weeks. Bones, it
was important
8th man.
It was important for Bones to have a good game, right? Like,
yeah, right. I was
so.
like, all right,
I think
me
so.
up a little bit, yeah,
right.
And I think the best way to look at it, or the positive way to look at it, is that, okay, cool, Bones can give you that, and Kyle can give you some other things too. And optionality isn't a bad thing unless it comes at the cost of those guys not playing enough so they can't get into rhythm, and you kind of have like a Shannon, Dillingham, Conley sort of thing where they Baron J, where they play for 5 minutes and then don't play again. I think that's the the piece that they'll need to navigate for the rest of the regular season, if we're both right that Kyle is going to be part of this rotation. But I would just haven't thought about it more of like, you get to a playoff series and you kind of choose your last guy or two in your rotation typically by what that matchup presents. Is it one where you need more of a Bones type of player, or do you need more of a Kyle type of player? A series that you need more defense, more size, those type of things. So I think this can absolutely work, but somebody's just going to have to sacrifice some minutes here and there. But it sounds like from when we were texting, you're with me that you believe Kyle's going to be a big piece of this.
So just with your playoff point, it's a great point because when you do get to that, that's exactly how it plays out. And Kyle is a prime example of that. In the Phoenix series 2 years ago, he barely played.
Yep.
Like it was like 5 minutes a game. They just didn't need it. Like perimeter ball, perimeter guys, like, and then offense to just not
because they were just packing it in.
Exactly.
They're packing it in and leaving guys wide open in the corner and
shooting.
Making Ant find the guy in the corner.
Yep.
You don't want Kyle there.
And it made the perfect sense of like, oh, Kyle's not playing much in this series, and he didn't. And then the Denver series, it was a lot of the same thing, except for when Rudy was out. And then Kyle played more. And then the Dallas series, they're like, okay, we don't really have an answer for Luka. Kyle, they felt like was one of their better ones, so he played more. Played more, even played like later in the games and stuff, and also like helped them out offensively, a lot of like directing traffic and whatnot. But a big thing was like, we think we need his defensive body. We think we need his abilities and size on that end. So you're right. Like you have to get guys minutes in the regular season so that you can feel comfortable when they get in the playoffs of like, hey, they can do it. But he is just another choice, and it's definitely a lever that in certain matchups will be pulled. So I agree. And I think for right now, like, I think that they think they have no reason to assume they're not getting the same player they got 2 years ago. And that player just said too. Yeah, it just doesn't fit. Like, because even when you look at, he's barely played, but when he has played, the numbers look the exact same. And it just
it's 32. It's just 32. It's
exactly. There's
not
no sense that he should be washed. There's none. And
if you liked what he did when he was 30 on the team 2 years ago, physically, it's very likely he can do those same things 2 years later, from 30 to 32.
Yep, totally agree. And it's just like, it makes sense for him too. Like, he's a funky player. It's not going to fit on everybody's team. They're not going to prioritize what he brings. But Chris Finch always has. And I would be surprised if he didn't again. And that doesn't mean
shooting be damned.
Yeah, and frankly, like, I do agree that how bad the shooting was, I really think that was an outlier. I mean, he talked about the eye thing, and like, maybe he wanted to provide a reason for the shooting, but I think it definitely played into it because it's never been that bad at any other point, and I went back and read the story I wrote about the eye thing, and I included a clip where like there's literally a spot on those NBA Cup courts where he just threw the pass to nobody. Yeah. And he talked about that place like I couldn't see on that court with those lights, like in those colors. So I think there's some of that will be alleviated, and we'll see. And I just think they're going to give him a real fair runway to be like, yep, is he still the guy we think he is? Because we think there's a fit for that guy on our team. And it is like good decision making. They could use more defensive tenacity and just integrity.
The defense piece is huge.
It's massive.
Is huge.
He was a really big part of what they did. He was a really big part of what they did on that end. Like, it didn't make a ton of sense of like, wait, why are they worse defensively last year? It was like, it's not Carl. Carl is a little bit better defensively than Julius in certain setups. He's longer, obviously, but that didn't make sense. We're missing Kyle and some of that versatility, and also just like mentality and mindset and preparedness. Like, that mattered. And obviously you won't have Nikhil from that, but if you can get Kyle in there, it is another body, and they need to take another stride on that end. And I think he will help them do so and give them some options against the Jokic, against a lot of different guys who maybe they don't have good guys for right now.
I'd said these numbers on the last podcast, but I'm going to say them again. Rudy on the floor, 108.6 defensive rating. Rudy off the floor this season, 121.5, 13-point differential is absolutely insane. 2 years ago when Rudy won Defensive Player of the Year, it was 107.8 with Rudy on, 111.3 with Rudy off, 2.5 point or 3.5. Yeah, that's 3.5 point differential right there, a small one. If you dig into it further and you look at who those, when Rudy was off, who the bigs were, it was not just Cat at the 5, it was Cat at the 5 and Kyle at the 4. And when you do those minutes from that season, the defensive rating was 108.6. It didn't even get worse. They were the defensive rating with Rudy on the floor was the same as the defensive rating with Cat and Kyle on the floor. And like what we just talked about, Cat did a great job in that Denver series, was a better defender at the end of his career in Minnesota. But we know what Karl Anthony Towns, if he's your starting center, defensively is a problem, period.
Mhm.
And Kyle Anderson and the rest of that very good defensive team helped that. But I think a lot of that was about Kyle Anderson being in the front court with Cat. And so optimistically, though I don't think it's the same fit with Cat versus Julius, the theory is defensively he could bring a little more solidarity to that group than it's had all season.
Those on-off numbers are super interesting because I just looked at it and I was like, oh, Kyle had in that season the best defensive rating among rotation players. It's like, okay, he didn't play all of his minutes with Rudy, and it wasn't Rudy. Like Kyle's were better. Like it's somebody who can just tie things together and is smart enough to be like, okay, wait, we're at a disadvantage here. We should do this like in real time, or I should go over here in real time, where the coach can't be like every possession. Now we're doing this. Now we're doing this. Like it's minor adjustments you can make at timeouts every 5 minutes, and so like that.
The coach on the floor makes that stuff happen quicker,
Right.
more like seemingly instinctually, rather than, watch the Wolves in transition defense. Like they don't know who they're guarding, and they're looking at Finch for what they're trying to do. Like they struggle at the instinctual things about defense.
Right.
That's what the issue is, and that's why this team has a track record of, not limited to Kyle Anderson, benefiting from high IQ players being on the floor or higher IQ basketball IQ players being on the floor in previous seasons. Finch knows that. And that's what leads me to believe I think it's going to kill him or he's just not going to be able to resist. I think it's just he's not going to be able to resist playing Kyle. And I think that'll be justified even in a playoff series if it's a matchup that makes more sense for him to play than Bones, which that exists, and the opposite exists as well, as you mentioned with the Phoenix thing. Like it's a really good option to have, I think.
Yeah, and it's a great time for him to come in, because if we just say, hey, he's going to come in for like the last 23 games, whatever it is here, you can get a real idea of like, okay, is he what do we think he is, which is like the same guy? How is the fit? Like, because right now you can change minutes around a little bit, but at worst he's the ninth man. Like we just showed yesterday, like, we saw it in front of our own eyes. Finch was like, yep, we have 8 guys that I trust in like what we consider to be playoff games. TJ didn't play, Jalen Clark didn't play, Barron J didn't play. They rode with 8. And so Kyle could slot into that 9th right now. And why wouldn't you do that if you're like, that's who we're comfortable with? Let's see if we work this new guy in as the 9th guy who could be the 8th option, depending on matchup. Like they'll get a real runway so that they can make an informed decision when the time comes for these series, when it really is going to matter of like, hey, these 10 minutes, as you just saw with the Denver game, like you can say, oh, the guys only going to play 10 minutes. Like, well, Denver lost the game because of who they played in those like 5-minute spans. Like they lost the game because of that. So you have to make the right choices there. And it's good for them that Kyle's coming in with enough time where they can kind of experiment with it and go, okay, who does he fit best with? Do these lineups work the way we think they do? All of that. It will be interesting. Last one, like the Rudy Kyle thing, it didn't work a ton last time Kyle was here, like Kyle's last season, because the shooting was so bad. Will they try to go to that again? Because Kyle, like you just mentioned, Rudy with the bench has been kind of a thing. If they do go with that, do they have the same problems? Is Kyle shooting enough where it's not an issue? Like, I don't know.
Well, I think we see Kyle initiate even more than he did 2 years ago, right? That's, if you ever have Kyle out there in a lineup with another non-shooter, I think he needs to be the point guard. Otherwise you're playing two non-shooter.
Good point.
Basketball, which they're not going to do or not going to have success doing. I think the non-Rudy lineups always have shooters out there, so if he's ever out there without Rudy, like, okay, like that's one guy who's in the dunker spot. That's fine. He doesn't need to initiate there. I think this roster does have enough shooting. I think the question is Julius. I mean, there was some possessions, I don't know if you noticed this yesterday, where when Jokic was on Randall, he was not guarding him out on the perimeter.
And Julius's 3-point shot is not a confident stroke right now.
No, it is not. Nor a percentage. I mean, it's just, I mean, and it wasn't a high percentage last year. He shot 34% last year. He's like 32 or whatever this year. I mean, it's like he might get ignored in the playoffs or even just in a game. And, you know, so that could be complicated with Kyle. I mean, if we're wrong about Kyle, the involvement we're like assuming he's going to have, it's going to be about the shooting issue. And how that fits with this personnel with Rudy and I think specifically Julius, but also, you know, to the eye point, like maybe now he can be a person who you're okay with taking, you know, 1 or 2 corner threes if he has to, and he's able to make 35% of those. Obviously he wasn't his last season here. We at least can point to the eye as
because the year before that was good. The year before 41 that was really good at that. Yeah. Yep. On those exact shots. I think it was even, we could even pick the side of the court that he was going to make them from. But it was very consistent. So, and if you get that, then it's a really good weapon for you. And to your point guard point, I went back and read it. Finch's end of season presser after Kyle's last season here, I asked like, hey, Mike got hurt in these playoffs. What could you do to take like some stress off of him or lean less on him? And he mentioned Ant filling more in that role, but then he also mentioned like we should run more offense through Kyle. At the time it was just funny because like, dude, Kyle's not going to be here. Everybody knows that. But it was like clearly Finch's wishful thinking of like, well, here's what I want to do. And now he's got him back. So like,
that's why they brought in Ingles too. Like I know Ingles is not proven to be the player, but like that was the idea when they signed Joe Ingles, was not to just be like the funny laughing vet on the bench. It was that role, and it was specifically more additional point guard play, as like we've seen Ingles do in garbage time and stuff like that. But that was kind of the vision, was if for the Wolves, they're thinking, you know, if we're losing Kyle Anderson, we need to replace that. And Joe Ingles was kind of a good player comp in that sort of way for that sort of role. So this team has had a hunger for this, I think, since Kyle Anderson has been gone.
Yeah, because like the bench minutes work when they get stops, they force turnovers, they get out in transition. Like it doesn't always work if they don't. If the other team scores, plays like real controlled tempo, like takes care of the ball. Like, Kyle will give you more of like, oh, well, this team isn't going to give us free points. How can we maybe slow the game down so we're not losing these types of minutes, depending on who it is and whatnot. So it's just a really good lever to pull, and for them to be able to pull it, they have to really test drive it a fair amount here in the last quarter of the season, and I think they will. And yeah, that's where we'll stand on. I'd be surprised if we're wrong. I know a lot of people are like, well, he might not play. Like he hasn't played for the last 2 years. Like he didn't play in Utah. He didn't play in Miami, really. He barely played in Golden State. But I really think here that the idea is that he will.
They have more of a desire for the skill set. And it's not like Utah where they're trying to play younger guys or whatever. Like, and some of that was shooting too. Like Utah did not have a lot of shoot. You know, Kyle can't play on a team that has a shooting deficit. The Wolves kind of do. You know, and so that's going to be that. I think that's going to be a big determining factor. Kyle is going to be signed today, March 1st, and he will be playoff eligible for the Wolves. That's the deadline to sign to be eligible for the playoffs.
That's the deadline to be released.
Right? Oh, released?
Yeah, because I think Tyus is at playoff eligible too, even though he hasn't signed anywhere. It's
okay, so
because yesterday is March 1st. Yesterday is March 1st.
Oh yeah, today's.
Yeah. So he's
he is signing today, right?
I think
I'm
so.
pretty sure that's what the plan is.
Yeah.
And we'll get to talk to him at practice or whatever.
Probably shoot around tomorrow. Yeah.
It'll be, I mean, and who knows? Like you and I are clearly assuming the best here, you know?
Yeah.
And it might not be that. I go back to the 30 versus 32 thing. If you like that player then, which we know Finch did, I doubt it's going to be a drastically different player. I mean, Mike was 35 when they traded for him.
Right.
35. Like,
so I don't know. Kyle's always really leaned heavily on that athleticism. So I don't know. The biggest thing I have is like, I would leave open for a window if it doesn't work. I would leave that window open, but I'm just saying that I'm pretty sure that they're going to give it a go. You know, like that's my biggest point. And I think it'll work, and I think it could work, but I also understand that it could not. The team is different. The dynamics are a little different. Kyle might be a little different. So it might not work, but I definitely think they're going to give it a try. And that's my main point of like, this guy, it's not just like a lot of buyout signings or whatever, where it's like, yeah, you might just good veteran leader or whatever. Like I don't think this is that whatsoever.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. And not to mention if one of the bigs gets hurt,
Yeah, right.
you know,
Good insurance.
and you don't want to go with Baron J, or maybe if it's Reed or Randall
Yeah,
who get hurt, like you can kind of play Baron J more, but you're not gonna play Baron J for 30 minutes because you're more likely to play Kyle next to Rudy than you are Baron J next to Rudy, and now Kyle's really the only other big option that they have. So it'll be interesting to see.
Last thing, like this will be big for Kyle too, because what's left if it doesn't work? You know,
Yeah.
like that's not. It's like you only fit on so many teams. This one makes a lot of sense, and you just see like kind of bouncing around the league a little bit, like not really finding a home. Like it's easy to fall out of the league at some point. Not to put that on him or anything, but I think this is you should have a very motivated Kyle Anderson to deliver his best basketball down the stretch here too.
Yeah.
Yes, because like his next contract absolutely depends on it. So that I think it's like motivation wise, like, and he knows
really good point.
He knows it's not him scoring 20 points. It's him making an impact on a team that's winning and making a playoff run. That's what gets you paid for a guy like that. So that's another incentive in his pocket, which only helps Minnesota.
And if I'm him, or I'm his camp, I'm thinking about like, no, this could be like a semi long term sort of thing.
Correct.
You know, who else is going to give you a long? No, I don't think the money's going to be that much. Is he going to be a near minimum guy? I think so. But
his minimum goes higher and higher each year. It's like Joe Ingles.
Sure.
It's like okay,
Exactly.
Joe's making 3.6 or whatever. Not bad,
right.
you know.
Yeah, and it's. I think once you get to that stage of your career, it's how long can you play? How long can you get contracts for? And if we've known anything from the pattern of behavior of this front office, like they'll keep at least a bench spot open for a vet. They got a 38-year-old Joe Ingles and 38-year-old Mike Conley sitting in two of those seats right now for that reason. Like I think Kyle could be that honestly for years, because he's
more usable right now. Yeah, he's more usable. It's not like he's only here for that right now.
Right.
But if you can, the best is to have a hybrid of somebody who can do that, who can be like that leader, but who's also playing some. So it's more like your voice is more respected if you're on the court. And it's more usable of like, hey, we need to be doing this. Easier to do that when you're on the floor than pointing it out in real time. So even if it's just 15, 12 minutes game, whatever.
Yeah. Interested to see how his bluntness resonates.
I think they need that sometimes. Like, I think like
I do too, but that could rub people the wrong way too.
Yeah, it absolutely can. Like that 3 years ago, when his first season here, like the team wasn't all ready for that. And it kind of like I remember like a New Year's Eve team meeting, and he like did some barking, and I think it didn't go over. Not everybody loved it or whatever. They were kind of taken back by it. I think
that's 21-year-old Ant, 22-year-old.
He's like, yeah, I'm not doing that again or whatever. Yeah. Like, and then you saw the way it kind of boiled over late in the season. with Rudy. But then 2 years ago, like it was like the most accountable team you'll ever see, and they wanted that. So how well can this team handle it? Because Kyle's blunt. Kyle says what he thinks. Kyle's the guy who they got blown out by the Cavs for the Heat, and Kyle was like, "Oh yeah, they really blew us out those last two games because Darius Garland didn't play, so we didn't have somebody to like pick on offensive." Like he just says what he thinks, and a lot of times it's good stuff that helps your team. That if you're not doing it, but you have to have the ears that are willing to listen to it. And can this team is it emotionally mature enough to do that? That's been a major thing for the last couple of years of like emotional maturity to handle adversity, to be professional night in and night out, even when it's not easy, all that kind of stuff. So it's his presence will be a good litmus test in that regard as well.
At least in theory. I mean, well, it's not in theory. He's going to inject that into the team. Does it resonate? And
because it can't always be Chris Finch, right? Like it can't always be Chris Finch coming in at halftime after the game. Like I wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough. It'd be nice if somebody, they've got a lot of leaders, but not a lot of vocal ones.
Not a lot of yappers.
Not a lot of yappers. Like Mike Conley's pulling you off to the side for a one-on-one. He's not standing up in the room and yelling at you, then I think that they could use a little bit of that.
I do too. It's gonna be interesting to see. I think he'll be around the team tomorrow, I would assume. And we'll get the chance to talk to him, and the Wolves will play the Grizzlies, his old team, I guess.
Could have got a ride up here. That'll been nice.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just get on the plane. Yeah, this is fun. Thank you for making this happen. It was a big win for the Wolves in the standings, and it's this road trip 3 straight wins in very weird Wolvesy sort of ways, but it's coming. I don't know.
The wins are coming.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you'd rather have them than not. I truly think for this team, like I think the biggest thing is like, can you work on your arm strength to try to throw a better fastball? But I like that. If you have to build towards that, then I understand that of like, oh, okay, we did it for like a quarter here. How do we do it for 2 quarters? How do we do it for 3 quarters? Sure. That's still progress. It was still progress. But as far as the standings go, I think, you'd like to be the 3. Sure. I think the biggest thing is avoiding Denver in round 1, because I think that'd be the worst time to play Denver when they're most likely to be healthy and have all their guys, getting the best version of them. It's like the Warriors were a bad round 1 for Houston last year because the Warriors had all their guys, and the Warriors with all their guys are pretty good, but they weren't going to be able to hold up for the whole playoffs. So I feel the same way about Denver. That's all I would really worry about from the standings. But you want to win games, give yourself the best chance to be a 3, because I don't think Denver's going to be the 6. And Wolves might bring you on the road.
3. The Wolves should be the 3.
Agree.
And that's not like aspirational. It's like, no, you're healthy, you're good. Like, you take care of business, you're the 3. And if you're the 3 seed, we can have some real conversations about if you're a contender in the West and when you flip the switch and all those sort of things. Flip the switch from the 6th seed. The history of that is, it just is what it is. And it's, it's unlikely to make the run that you expect. It's hard. It's a harder path. And I think the 3 seed would make a world of difference for this.
It's just like that's the most likely way to dodge Denver. And I think all the other teams in round 1, you really should beat that team. Like I like Phoenix, I do, and obviously Brooks will be back in time for the playoffs. So like I think they'll be a pesky team. But the Wolves should beat Phoenix in a first-round series. The Wolves should definitely beat the Lakers. We've seen it. All of these potential matchups, even if it happened to be the Rockets, I think they would beat the Rockets. Denver's one where if Denver's healthy, it's like, oh, okay, you really got to play well in that round to advance. And when you have to,
so just make it the second round.
Yeah, exactly.
Play them the second round.
Yes, you don't want to be overstressed in round 1. It makes for a really long playoff run if you are extended all the way in the first round.
Yes. Yeah. We will see. I'll see you tomorrow at the game, and we'll keep talking about this this team as it keeps moving. The next episode for listeners is going to be Chris Hine and I. We're going to actually record right after the game on Tuesday night after the Grizzlies game. We'll get some perspective from Chris, and that should be in your feeds on Wednesday morning. But until Tuesday night with Chris, he's Jace. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, Greening hard so you can find me in the crowd, Don't let standards ever bring you down,